What's up, everybody?
Hello.
We're back, and we brought
Round
Hello.
3.
a special guest.
Yeah.
So we changed our layout a bit, and we now have 3 cameras. And we brought Ronnie along. He's one of our UX consultants, and he's gonna tell us all about styling and making your application look fancy and user-friendly. Because that was a much requested feature. I'm sorry, I was looking at my screen. I thought I saw something, but it was nothing.
It was Ronnie.
Yeah, I think I think that was it.
No, but that's right. I'm excited for tonight. We started out with using the basic pages that Manix provided us with, and
Yep.
last time we've been playing around a bit with the building blocks that were available to us, and it didn't quite look as good as we thought it would. So hence bringing Ronnie aboard because he knows all about this stuff.
Yeah.
But is there a plan for tonight?
Well, let's start with a recap from 2 weeks ago because we skipped a week. Not saying that we are planning to do this every week, but still we missed a week in our previously schedule, I'd say. So we started building an application which had similar functionality as TripAdvisor. So we started with a list of restaurants, and the restaurant had an overview page and a detail page and a little Google Maps widget. But as Willem said, we used the default Atlas UI building blocks for that, and we started with a blank page, so that doesn't look really nice. And to show you guys, let's run the project real quick.
Yep.
That's the first time I will see it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Going in blank.
Yeah. I'm quite curious what you made of all of this.
Well, don't expect too much
No,
just yet.
small disclaimer: we worked really slow, so it's not that much yet.
Yeah. Especially the first stream, we took our time and we dove into stuff way more than we would usually do when we build an application.
Let's view it in Chrome. So this is our application. This is the admin part, which is very blank. We have some master data here, where we can add our restaurants. And when we switch over to the user, we have a list of restaurants, which doesn't look nice. Guys, you want a nice little list, I think, with maybe a bigger image or something like that. And well,
yeah, and we wanted this to be responsive.
Yeah, obviously.
Yep.
And when we click on the details page, details button, you go to the detail for the restaurant, and there's a little map, and I see someone has been working off stream.
Yeah, a bit. I thought I'd try and add some stuff. Ran into to a few things, but I thought this was already a bit better to look at than what we ended up with last time.
Yeah. So there's this detail page with a header that Mendix default supplies in their toolkit. Some breadcrumbs which obviously don't do anything yet. The Google Maps widget, some information, and the reviews we built last time. And that's basically it.
Yep.
All right. That's enough to work with.
Nice.
Awesome.
So I personally don't really have a goal for tonight. I don't really have any idea what I do want this page to look like. But I think it would be really cool if you can help us in your way of working. What things to look out for? How do you start with styling a a web page or an application.
Yeah. What are your considerations when you do this? What are do's? What are don'ts? Maybe some questions from the audience as well.
Yeah.
And one thing I now realize is that we kind of did the introduction for you, but I think it might also
Very true.
be good for our viewers to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, probably. Um, well, my name is Ronnie. I work at TimeSeries for a few years now. And before I worked at TimeSeries, I worked a few years at a different company where I was the UX guy for Mendix applications for a lot of Mendix applications within one company. And their challenge was that there were a lot of developers and a lot of different teams, and they had one style because every application was an internal Mendix application. So they all need to look kind of the same, like a company branding. But how do you do that with just one UX design front end guy with all those teams? And that was a bit of a challenge a few years back. It was pre Atlas time, pre UI resources time. So we had to come up with some clever way of doing that. And with doing that, I learned quite a lot about Mendix and styling and how to keep the platform in its power as a low-code and fast developing platform, while still continue to do some styling that you want. Well, actually, not some styling. You can go quite far even with Mendix, and still being able to develop fast. So that's the combination I always keep in mind when I'm working with Mendix as a platform. You can go all aboard with every styling you want, but the power is in keep the development as fast as you can. And with Atlas release and UI resources folder module, it even enhanced that further, and now we can quite fast develop very nice pages for a Mendix application. So that's where I'm focused in last years, just to keep the styling up to a standard of the modern day websites and browser tools. You saw browser tools, yeah, web tools.
Yeah.
While keeping close to the fast developing cycle.
Yeah, I think Paul and I had the pleasure to work with the stuff that you set up at the client you were just talking about, and we can we can honestly say that it does work. Last time we already ran into that we use some of the default classes that you provided us with. Some basic stuff, you know, like the margin top M, etc. I don't know if that is something that's default Bootstrap or that's something that came out of your general experience.
Well, there is some default Bootstrap functionality there, but not everything in the default Bootstrap was in Mendix.
Yeah.
And they kind of made a selection what they put in and what they don't, or what their version of that kind of class they put in Mendix. And the newer version, 8, Mendix 8, because at the client you worked with a lower Mendix version. The newer version, they have even gone further with their own classes that kind of do the same. So that makes it kind of hard for developers to remember or look up what kind of class they want to use for the functionality they want. Because some are bootstraps, some aren't. So that's what I did back then was add the bootstrap class name to, if it was a Mendix class name, the Mendix class name. And if it wasn't in the style guide, style sheets, then I just added them in. So you could look up everything the Bootstrap has and use it in the project.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you know if Mendix has a documentation page up somewhere where they explain which classes they do have? Or is it something you had to find out by just looking through the CSS files in the basic application?
Well, to be honest, I never looked for that documentation because I was always in the CSS files anyway.
True.
So I saw them coming by and see what was in there. So for me, when I look at a project where a developer started styling and I see them adding classes to the custom file, for example, to float the text to the left or to the right, I was thinking, dude, there is a class for it. Why don't you use it? Why do you make your own class? But of course, if you're not in those files, you just don't know what classes there are, so you make them up.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think I
But
was one of those guys.
Yep, me too.
But this project we're working on now, I see the benefit of having all those helper classes available to you. And like William just said, we actually tried using some of them in this application, and they weren't there, and we had to like use inline styling with the note that we would remove those and add them as extra classes ourselves. But it's very easy to get used to all those helper classes.
Yeah, and the hardest part is to communicate between developers what classes you have added.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working on different pages, different parts of the project, and you need a text align right, you're going to make it up. And if you forget to tell the developer, hey, I made a class for text align right, how does the other developer know that there is a class for text align right?
Yeah.
He doesn't, so he makes another one.
Yep.
And he's not starting to look through all those SASS files if you see there's maybe a text align right in there already. And with the design properties in Mendix 8, so I'm a big fan of Mendix 8, the design properties helps you just to select text align right.
Yeah.
You just have to maintain the design properties, but that's a different story for later. But it really helps, and the first step to getting there was the building blocks.
Yeah.
Because
I
then you
totally
can make a
forgot
building
about.
block as a text thing and you save it as text align right. And then your building block is a text element with alignment right.
Never looked at it that way, to be honest. I always looked at building blocks like a collection of Mendix widgets to quickly build your page, but you can use it as
Yeah.
styling elements as well. That's
I
pretty
think
clever, actually.
first thing is the best thing to do with building blocks. Look at them as a collection of elements.
I think the list views are already taken apart, right, in the building blocks by default, because you have to list items and you have the types of list views already.
No.
Maybe that's one way to look at it. True.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's dive in, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Where do we start?
That's a good question. I will not completely style the whole project now, to the extent that we could style it, because it just don't have time for it, and it's just explaining the way I work with the tools and how you can get as far as you want with it.
Yeah.
But you have a decent basic.
Mm-hmm.
The basics for styling in Mendix is that Mendix is using a SASS library, and SASS needs to be compiled to CSS. So first you need a compiler. Luckily, Mendix has a compiler. It's called Calypso. So let's first run that one. It was on the desktop, I believe.
Yep.
Yep, here it is.
That's some good preparation.
Nice preparation.
It was a busy day.
I need to select the folder projects are in. I guess it's this one.
No, it's the other one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, but the folder projects
Yep.
are in is
Yes.
True.
If you want to do this yourself, but you have a username with a space
With
in it,
space,
it
yeah.
could be that it doesn't work.
Yeah, we ran into that problem while we were talking about Calypso in one of our release videos.
Mm-hmm.
We used
Yeah.
Willem's laptop, uh, and obviously he has spaces in his username, and it did work. But I thought it was fixed, but apparently it's not.
Okay, now it could be. It's just sometimes I still ran into developers that have this problem, but maybe it's wrong version of Calypso they downloaded.
Could be.
Oh, that could
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
I don't know.
I followed a support ticket, so Manix knows.
Okay. Another thing I noticed is that sometimes the ports won't reset.
Okay.
So when you use 8085, for example, the next time you run Calypso, it states 8080, but when you start it, it's actually searching for 8085.
Oh,
I don't know if it's fixed. For me, I'll just always check and change,
yeah.
even if it's correct. I just do it
Right.
Good
because
That's
it's
try.
yeah. That's nice to have in your system.
yeah. Well, it should be fixed, but I never checked.
So you
Are
press.
starting to use this and something is wrong, then you know where to look for.
Just some. Well, this is created by Manix themselves, right? Calypso.
Yeah. What it does now is making a new um, host, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a technical term, but I'll put it in the same window.
So I
Yeah.
think it's creating a browser sync session, which opens the application in a separate on a separate port, and this basically allows for quick reloads while changing CSS or SASS and compiling it to CSS and automatically reloading the page. I
Exactly. Yeah.
think.
When this thing is searching for or seeing or detecting actually changes in this folder,
Mm-hmm.
it will indeed reload the page and
Yeah.
apply the change.
So any SASS folder with any SCSS file.
Yeah. Yep. In this case, and you can even add some more folders, like the JavaScript folder or LPage um, folder, if you want to use
Awesome.
SASS for that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's that. That's running. Should be working. Now the tool to change the SASS files. In this case, Visual Studio is installed, so we'll use this one. It doesn't really matter as long as it supports SASS because that's easy, because then you see all those colorful helpers when you're typing in. And you can easily see if you made a mistake. What I mean is that you see that this one is white, this one is orange. You see some colors. Just makes it a little bit easier to scan if you have mistakes. Like if you forgot this thing, you see, oh shit, why is this all yellow or greenish? Just makes it a bit easier. But doesn't really matter. You can also use a notepad or something.
If you want to go
And
basic.
now, sorry?
I said if you want to go basic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now I'm going to take you through the folder structure. And it's not really complete right now because we started from theme styles and then go to web and then edit the SASS folder into Visual Studio. The CSS folder is a folder that gets generated by a SASS compiler. So you can just delete this whole thing, save a SASS file, and it's all structures back again.
Cool.
Uh,
So that means if it actually gets overwritten, right? So when you make
yeah,
a change
every
to your
time.
CSS folder and then recompile your SASS, your changes to your CSS are gone.
Yes, exactly. So don't change your CSS if
Yeah.
someone in your project is changing SASS files.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
really good information.
Yeah. What you can do, of course, is make a completely different named CSS file here, because it will only write and rewrite the known names. But then you have to change all your HTML files to also load in that CSS file that you added in that CSS folder, because that's not something he does standard. So that's a bit of a hassle. So just don't do it.
Stick with the way it's set up right now.
Yeah.
Noted.
You have a native folder and you have a web folder within the styles folder in the theme folder. And the native is for mobile native applications. We're not going into that right now, so we're focusing on the web folder.
It's a whole different cookie, native.
It's a whole different cookie, a whole different cake, I think. So maybe we need to dedicate 2 or 3 live streams to native styling and invite some other people.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
We'll definitely do that because it's something we want to learn as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. And it's really cool, but it's a bit more complex.
Yeah.
Within the SASS folder, we have the app folder, a core folder, UI resource folder, and a main. I'm going to switch to the Visual Studio tool because it's already open here. In the main, you see actually all the SAS files that are in those different folders. What this does is it will import this file straight into main.scss. And we had a sneak peek in the CSS folder. There you see the main, it's a .css file. And this is actually what it ends up. So all those folders and files will all be combined into this one main.css.
Okay, it's good to know.
And
So if you ever create your own, then you should add them here as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not completely exactly, because the main combines the core and the UI resource folder and the app folder into one. But the core folder is actually a folder that you should not change files in. And I will show you quick why, because it says so.
Well,
That's
fair
always a
enough.
good reason.
Yeah, so I think that if you want to update your Atlas UI for a newer version of Mendix, or they just released a new version of Atlas UI because they had a bug, or they have a new feature that needs some new CSS files, it will update the core folder, I guess.
Okay.
Because that's what they're referring to here.
Yeah.
Updating Atlas was difficult in
Yeah.
the future. So if you are going to change stuff in this folder, and someone else is thinking, hey, I should update Atlas because they have a new feature and I want to use it, you could be in bad luck with your changes. They could be gone.
Yep.
So, and main is just a collection of everything above. So you should not really have to do anything in main. So where can you do something? That is in the app folder. The app folder, you see that there's a custom variable and a custom. And this custom you could see as the same kind of file as is in main. It's also importing files. How was it?
Yeah.
Now
So
it
that
only
one.
imports only
Yeah.
one, because there's only one file in the app folder. What I like to do is, if I have a change in the alerts.scss, because I want this to have a margin top of 10, for example, I make the folder widget under app, then the file alert in that folder widget, and then import the folder widget with the file alert.
Yeah.
So I keep the folder structure the same as the core structure.
It's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yep.
clean.
Yeah. So you have all those. If you have in your mind what is a widget, what is a helper, what is the base, what is in the building blocks like breadcrumbs and the cards, page headers that are building blocks that Mendix defined as building blocks, then it's easier if you need to change something in your application, like there's a card. When you click in details, you see cards here, and I want to change something in this card, and you have to be in the folder building blocks. You could also put the building blocks folder within the folder Atlas UI or in UI resources within app to even make it more the same, but it's actually the only folder that really matters. So I often choose to make it just building blocks, widgets, helpers, and base when necessary. And then it's easier to find the file you need. So I guess we should start with doing something.
Yeah. In the meantime, I noticed Paul answered a question on from one of our viewers.
Okay, cool.
Gulp versus Calypso. Is there a reason to use one over the other?
For me, it's the ease of use. Calypso is for me way easier to use. But I spoke to a colleague today at a client, and he was using Gulp because he had virtual machine where he runs his Mendix projects in, and he works on a iOS device, a Mac laptop, and Mendix doesn't really run on iOS yet. So he has this virtual machine where he runs the projects, and then in his iOS version, he runs the gulp and the SASS compiling and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So for him, why he was not using Calypso, because Calypso works on the Mac, was that with gulp he can check all the SASS folders from all projects. So he doesn't have to change the project every time he switches a project in his virtual machine. That's a reason for someone to use Gulp.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Calypso only supports one project at a time.
Yeah.
So if you work in more projects, then you keep changing this to compile SASS.
Yeah. And it only works in Mendix 8, right? Or also in 7?
Good question.
I thought it worked in 7 as well because
Yeah.
I don't think it actually cares what Mendix version it is as long as it's CSS, SCSS.
Yeah, because it's just a SASS compiler. That's true. Yeah.
So it should work in Mendix 7 as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And there are different ones like Koala. You can also add multiple folders of a project to keep scanning the SASS files for changes and then compile them. But I tend to think that Koala is kind of slow.
Yeah.
With detecting changes. So for me, it's really the ease of use and the fast way that Calypso is detecting and pushing it to the browser. But then again, this is my work, so I'm always doing this. And if you're only changing once in I don't know how long, then yeah, maybe it's easier to have a tool that supports all your projects at once.
So I find it pretty cool that Mendix made a tool like this, and you who uses the fact that you use it on a daily basis. That's kudos.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, it really helps for me. So I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Any more questions? Because I can't see them.
We will relay the questions
yeah.
when we see them and we find some time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the easiest customization you can do, and that is changing the custom variables. They are in for a reason, and it is to make your project look and feel a bit different with really low effort. This is
Okay.
changing colors, for example. If you change this to green, it's the info color. Let's not do the info color, but let's change the primary color to green. And Visual Studio has this nice pop-up when it works. I'm not a Visual Studio user. I normally use Sublime, but this will do as well. Now I've saved it with a Control S, so you didn't see it. I saved it. And
believe
we
you.
should see some changes on our page already.
Yep.
Let's change it back here and save again. Go to the browser, and now we see that the items are blue again. These are blue. The line above is blue. The link color is blue.
Yep.
That is fast.
And you see how fast it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Green, save it now, switch to the browser, and it's already green. It's insanely fast.
That is some good stuff.
Yeah, but this is the really fastest way, of course, to personalize your application. But it's not a big change, of course.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a very nice start.
But this would help you define the basic color scheme of your application.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does this work? Well, in the main, you see that the main file imports this custom variables file that I just changed. And because it uses variables like brand primary, all the SASS files that are using that variable will now be green.
Yeah.
So this button default, it's a bit far into SASS, but it will be explanatory enough, I think. You see that the class button primary has a button primary color, a button primary background, primary border color. These are all variables. And if I change the primary color to a green or a purple, then this button file with the class button primary will be purple.
Yep.
And throughout all the SASS files, they use those variables. So it's quite fast, quite easy if you stick to those variables to change your application really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing you should do yourself as well, right? If you create a new class or whatever, use those variables as well if you want to use colors.
Yeah. So if you decide that your headers should be pinkish color, then you could go and add the folder widget, I guess, because there's the typography. Yeah, you could add the folder widget. Let's just do it right now. New folder, widgets. And within that folder, I create a new file, and it's called underscore typography. So let's do this. And now I can make the titles. I don't know what H type it is, so putting some
Just
down
all
there.
of them.
Yeah. Color purple. That's a nice one.
Sure.
Now save it. Go to the application. Nothing happens. Why? Because this file is a new file. This custom compiling file does not know that this file exists. And if it's not known that this file exists, then Calypso can detect change, because he detects it and pushes it to the browser. But actually, the application itself uses this importing tool and the importing tool from the app folder. That is a folder where you can customize things. But that customized compiling file does not know that there's a new file that has some changes. So that's why you don't see it. So to see it, we have to add import. See, it fixes my typos. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Digits underscore, and he also auto-completes. Boom.
No worries
Now,
that the underscore is gone?
no, that's not a problem.
Okay.
I do see it does not have this. I don't know if that matters, really. I don't think so, because custom variables also hasn't
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
got it. Guess. Okay. But we didn't see it.
Semicolon behind it.
That's true. I think did he error on it? He did not error on it. But could be a change. No, maybe it's a different H. Let me inspect this.
It's H2.
It's an H2.
But the color, well,
That's a tricky thing, of course. Yeah, that's a good one. Why doesn't he do it? It is a class, right? Or is it just
That's an element.
it's an element? Yes.
The class is card dash title.
Yeah. Well, let's change the elements then.
there we go.
There it is.
I saw
There
it.
we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. A quick difference between elements and classes. Elements are the first things behind the square brackets. So div, h2, label, script, all the kind of things. And classes are the ones in the classes part. So mx text, mx name, card title.
Yep. Classes can be anything, right? And the HTML elements are sort of predefined.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you have text in Mendix and you put it as a text property on a class or on a header, then it gets the header element and the header class. So that's why I started with the class, because if you put dots in front of it, then it's a class, and if you don't, then it's an element.
And you
so
can combine this as well.
Yeah, you can combine it. Yeah.
Cool.
It's no problem. So now it works like we saw. It's purple. And why do we use the underscores? Because if you do not use the underscores, it will copy the file to the CSS folder. And then you have a lot of files in your CSS folder that are all compiled, and they are all imported into the main SCSS.
So that's
and you
why.
See that this,
yeah.
You see that this one doesn't have the underscore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only one he will copy to the CSS folder.
Cool.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. I learned something.
I learned multiple things already.
Great. But now, of course, I forgot why I was doing this, but that doesn't really matter, as long as we learn something.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that was what I was talking about. You can change it here and call it purple. But I know, and that's the whole tricky thing of styling with Mendix, I know that there is a variable that determines the color of headers. So now I made a header color. Well, there is a variable that changes header colors.
Yeah.
Like this one, font color headers.
Wow. Okay. So this comes down to just knowing the variables that are available, right?
I'm afraid so, yeah.
Yeah.
If I change it to the font color headers, see that it's blue.
Yep.
It's just that color. And if I change the font color header into the nice purple we have, you see that also works. And that saves me this folder and this file and the changes in the custom.
Yeah.
But that's things you need to know.
Yep.
It's just looking it up every time you do something. Look up if there's already something that does this. And if not, then you make it yourself. And even then, if this was not here, to do this, it would be a nice thing to think about, hey, maybe I should add this in the variables. Maybe I want to change it in the future or use it for a different project that we're doing later on this year. Because it's just makes it so more easier to work in one file and change all the variables to make it your project, your custom project, instead of going through all those files and change all those numbers and colors by hand.
Mm-hmm. Seeing this, it's hard to think that such a thing did not exist before. That you would have to work with CSS files only.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago, of course. It's something around for a while now. But yeah, true.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. So when you think about our application, what what is your general thoughts on this page, and what would you like to do with it? Because we're basically giving you free reins.
Yeah. Um, well, first, let's make it a bit more modern. And I'm not first grade visual designer,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I have seen some more modern websites and stylings and stuff. So
Yeah.
you just try and just make it a little bit more cleaner.
And
And
what kind of stuff would that involve?
Yeah. Walk us through it.
yeah, we will remove these lines and make the list stand out from the background.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think we should align the title of restaurants and have a look at school places with the list view lines. So it's
Yeah.
a more, how you say it, easier site.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier readable. You don't have to move your eyes across the entire page.
Yeah, especially if you have an even wider screen and you have to look at the restaurants over there and the list over there.
Hmm. Yeah.
So let's start with that one.
Cool. Yeah.
Now, we are using Manix 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's make
The
advantage. Let's use the advantage of 8.
it's restaurant list page.
Yeah.
So this is really my first time in this project now, you see. To search for all the pages. What I always do is turn on the show styles.
Mm-hmm.
I know if you are hardcore developing, you don't care about this thing. But if I'm styling, I am caring. Because I want to know why they are styling on this element. And
Mm-hmm.
if maybe someone made a class on their own, put it on this, or made some inline styling, that's also possible on this screen, in this field. Then I want to know about it, because if I'm styling and I'm checking what I did and it does not match, then I could make a mistake, or there is some styling already on the element that I have not seen if this is not on.
Yeah.
It is a really handy tool.
Do you use design mode in Studio Pro?
I was just about to ask.
No,
Okay. I
no,
thought as
never.
much, but especially with Calypso, the sync is so fast. Why would you?
Yeah, and it gives you an idea, and in this case, it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
But in many cases, for more complex pages, more busy pages where there's way more on it, it tends not really to render as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for me, it's way easier to do stuff in this and with the browser tools, because then you can also change stuff on the fly.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how this works, then that's also a different topic, of course. Not for today, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. It's basically comparing Studio to Studio Pro in a sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Because this is kind of the Studio view instead of the Studio Pro view.
It is right. Yeah, I think that's where it's from actually. So
Yeah. All right. Let's get styling.
let's do it.
Nice.
I talked about the ease
Design
of use of design properties in Mendix 8. And here we have the design properties already in front of us. What this thing does is show you some basic styling that can be applied on this current selected element. And for us, for now, for the removing of the lines, this one, the style, has a nice drop down and you can select what kind of list view we want to see. And there is a no styling version, so let's check out what this thing does. In Mendix, if you change design properties, you do need to rerun.
That makes sense.
Not automatically refresh browser and works. So we
Lines are
removed
gone.
the lines. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Step one.
Oh,
Uh,
nobody can see the properties because they are behind our webcam. Could you maybe
okay.
just put them
Well,
somewhere?
I can move them to the left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Yeah,
Just put them here because the pages list is not that big, the Project Explorer. So
just to put them underneath the Project Explorer,
Yeah.
maybe.
yeah, I can also. That's like this, right?
Or that works as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
So
heads up,
here it
Bart.
Yeah, good one.
So I selected in the style the no styling. And that's what just happened. And you can see the result in classes.
Yeah, I really like that you actually learn what certain things do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can start remembering the class names. But
Yeah.
then again, it's not that important anymore because you can just select them.
Fair enough.
Kind of nice to look at how it's called if you want to change this thing, because it's not exactly what I want. I want a bit more margin up top left, padding, color, whatever.
Yeah.
And the no styling thing, you shouldn't do that because it's called no styling, so no styling. But in a different style drop-down selector, you like the striped. If you don't like the color of the striped, you can look this up in the SASS folder, SASS files, and change what you want. So that's a good thing that it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, there will be no way of knowing what the classes are that are applied, right? Or you would have to go into the application itself and to go to the inspector.
Yeah, exactly. Go inspect in this, and it's
Yeah.
way more work. I don't know if they fixed it already in 8.10, but searching on the resulting classes did not work. That was a
So if
shame.
you would do Control F and you want
Yeah.
to
Styling. Let's just check it.
oh,
Oh,
you would have to add the
miss a
G.
G, miss a G.
Typo. Styling, yes. That's the Atlas UI resource module. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
no.
not
But
Okay.
that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, that's
is that something that you use a lot then? Well, I assume so because you said you miss it, but
Not a lot.
okay, but in certain cases it helps because you know what kind of class would be on there, and then that would help you search for where that is applied.
Yeah, for example, if you have a bigger application with a lot of different kind of pages and views on those pages,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a list view where you show account names with email addresses and a detail button or whatever. That's as list view striped, for example. Then later on the application, you have the same account view with the same list view, but full screen. And you want to change the, 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 the default padding in between those rows because you have a full screen. Then you can just change the individual rows like this container that I've selected and put more padding, margin, whatever on it. You can also say, let's just change the default height of a striped list view. Because everywhere I use the striped list view, I want this more margin, padding, whatever. Maybe you want all those text to be bold or something.
Yeah.
But if the project is bigger, then you may not remember where you have used all those list view with style striped. Then you can search for list view dash striped, and you can see all the pages where you used it, and you can check quite fast if you have used it somewhere where you do not want those changes.
That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big explanation, but it's
No, but it does help. Yeah.
yeah.
Paul Eden has a question. Speaking of list views, do you know of a good way to align headers above a list view with the columns in the list view?
Oh, classic.
Yeah, that is. If but that's an assumption. It should be fine. Let's just test it out. If you use the same container title,
Does it though? Yeah.
title.
Doesn't it
I
depend
think
on what kind of spacing it uses?
yes, that's all different. That's a different story. See, now it's already kind of broken.
Yeah.
So list view has some default styling that it applies on its items. And you have to fake that. You have to recreate it outside a list view. So you really have to inspect what kind of styling that there is on those items and on those files. You have to manually work it out to make it fit. I think there is a list view header kind of thing. But that's also how you call it, the title sorter, header sort. But also this thing must be placed somewhere within, I don't even remember, yeah, somewhere in a container like this. And it has a default header styling on it. So it matches better with data grid, for example. But still does not have the styling that a list view item has. And a list view item is really the item in a list view, this thing.
I think the classes and the elements also disappear behind our webcam feed.
Oh yeah, of course. Let me put it on this side.
Perfect.
Yeah. So this list view item thing, the li, the li, within a list view, it has styling, and it has styling on the elements within those list view items, and you have to manually fake it in something that's not in the list view.
Another way I saw people achieve this before is by going back to the good old tables.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think that's wishful practice, is it?
No. No, tables are defined as data sources and not as styling elements. And if you're making an internal application, that does not really matter. But if you make an application that goes for the public, then also search engines and all that kind of stuff, they use the table tag to know we're going to scan a big pile of data now. And that's where
Alright.
also you search on and all that kind of stuff. If you use it for styling, then those search engines get confused and you could get a bad rating on your search results.
Oh wow.
Wow. Good to know.
Never even knew that.
Yeah, yeah. Also, tables, you can use them to make some good styling, some good looking styling and some responsive styling. But you can also very easily break it. And then it's a pain in the ass to fix it again. Tables are just not made to style complete pages or layouts. So it's and some people are masters with styling with tables. I never were, and I never want to be. So I'm always struggling if I see tables and I'm just changing them out with layout grids because it has way more freedom and way more use of space and responsiveness and maybe even faster with layout loading, page loading. So yeah, what you also can do is make a row within the list view, so it has the same styling, and then fake it with styling that you only want to see the first row of that header row. So you make a header row like this. Of course, put in headers in this thing then. And you put a class around this column that says list view header row, for example. And then in the CSS, tell that in this list view with this name, also could have a header row list view thing. And in the header row list view thing, the list view header row first child, because you can use a first child as an adjective to classes. Show that one and hide all the others. But what hiding does within styling is that it still gets rendered but then removed. So it still takes some time to build those rows. You don't see it, but it's in the background of the server. It's not much, but if you have a lot of this kind of crazy solutions, it's not nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's better to put it above and then just have a bunch of styling on this one thing to make it fit. And if you have this one that fits, then you can probably use it on different list views in your application as well.
Yeah.
Can,
Once you figured it out.
can you, maybe this is a very stupid question, I'm gonna ask it anyway. Can you nest classes? So for example, create a list view header class and have that get elements from all the default list view classes once you look them up, so you have a simple class to put in your class property instead of the whole shebang.
Do you have an example of what you're looking for?
So if you want to create this list view header right now, we would have to find all the default classes Mendix has on a list view item and set them on the header, which can be somewhere between 10 or 15 classes basically. Uh, can I set those 15 classes in one new class I create myself so I can easily remember that?
Yeah, it's possible, but not so easy as it sounds. With
Is it
SASS,
ever?
you can no, no, with SASS, you have to do it in the SASS file, and in the SASS file you can reuse used classes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I can look up an example somewhere. Think in the base maybe. I've seen it somewhere. Let me see if I can just quickly find it. If not, I'm going to try to explain it. Oh, here. This one.
Cool.
You can use the include.
Ah,
Then you can include stuff within one go to something.
so
And this is in the mixins buttons. There's a it's like a JavaScript thing where you put
right.
in
Oh, that's cool.
how you call it again. Just put in numbers and it will work with those numbers and do the magic what's underneath it. So it is, yeah, with this button thing, you don't have to write border color, button default color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Background color, button default background.
It's like
So
a function in
It is.
yeah, like function. Yes.
with
Yeah.
parameters.
Yeah. And next to that, you can also extend. I think that class was called. There's a little bit of change going on, and if you need to use extend or what's the other one called? Not include, but something else. I don't know anymore. Here's the extend. What the extend does is using everything that's that's in the class button bordered. It will put right there, so it will write out everything that's styled in button bordered.
Oh, that's handy. So you can basically reuse those classes.
Yeah, yeah. And with the extend, you can add some like border color should be black, for example. Then he will takes everything that's in the class button bordered and then overrides if there is a border color in it. To override this latest thing. So you can pretend like everything that's in the class button bordered is now written here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to use SASS to combine multiple classes into one. What you can do is add more classes to an element. Change this all up. You see that the resulting classes are more than one.
Yeah.
And it will also just add them up. And the last one is the one that's overrides the most. So if the no styling has no Hoover style, but I will put the Hoover style later on than the styling list, then it will still have a Hoover state.
Oh wow.
And if it changes around, do this gone and this gone, then first this and then do the no styling. Then you see that the Hoover is first and then the styling list. Then if in the styling list specifically is set that the Hoover state does not have styling, it still does not have styling although you have selected yes.
Oh, is there a way around this, or is this just something that you need to know?
You need to know, and it's a nice feature because now you can change up different classes to get the desired effect without having to make a new class. So if
That
you want
is true.
stylingless list views but with Hoover state, you just have to make sure that you correctly set the order of the classes. So now list view Hoover is last, so it will override the stylingless class.
Nice.
In the question you asked if you can add all those stylings that a list view element has, list view element is kind of scattered between all kind of different files.
Yeah.
In the list view, there is something in the widget, and there's also something in the helpers. And list view is also touched by the base folder with some resets and all kinds of stuff. And in the legacy, there is the bootstrap classes, and list view is also a bootstrap thing. So there's also classes for bootstrap in list view. So it's too much to fix it in one go.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you really have to do it nicely and manually if you want to make nice headers for your list view.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So
Well,
back to the application.
Yeah.
yeah,
One thing I noticed that you on the list view you set it to hide on desktop. I'm not sure if that's something you want because we would not see anything.
good. So, put it back. The image circle, also a class that's Bootstrap default. Something you need to know. I made for TimeSeries starting template for Manix 8, and I've added a lot of styling choices in the design properties. You can change what you see in this list of designing properties. And I don't know if I already did it, but I should do it. Include the image circle class that I just removed from this thing to a dropdown. So that's the design property is the shape of the image, triangle, circle, square, whatever you name it. There are classes for it already, so you can just put them in a dropdown like the center. Yes, no image center, image circle, and then you don't have to remember what classes there are in Bootstrap or Mendix for that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes back to the part you mentioned earlier that the developers don't need to know the classes specifically anymore, but you can use the design properties in this.
Yeah. Only thing that someone has to do is um, enhance the design properties to all the changes you can do to that kind of element.
But that's
And I
a
started doing that
one-time
for
effort.
that's a one-time effort because you can interchange the list of those design properties within projects. So I made it for our starting template at TimeSeries, and we can just use it on every client and have all those easy to access design properties of all elements.
That is awesome.
It is pretty
And
cool.
I will show you later how you do those design properties yourself. That also removes the part that you want to use a building block for a circular image or a square image. Otherwise, a developer who is building it, should know that there is an image circle. And if you make a building block of it, and you can add building block, type in image, and you see image circle, then you know then there's an image circle. That's where way in the beginning that building blocks were introduced, I used the building blocks for.
Okay.
That's not really what they are meant for, but it's a bit more easier. Yeah, I made it square. It's a little bit more modern.
Yep.
Also, we have to align the restaurant with the list. And I think that this is the issue. A layout width has a general width setting. It says fixed width. What fixed width does is bootstrap snapping of how width an element is. It uses default standardized resolutions for desktop, tablet, mobile. And it says if it's mobile, then be full screen. If it's tablet, then be, I don't know, some pixels off the sides. And if it's desktop, then go to max 70%, 80%, whatever of the resolution. So it kind of snaps every once in a while in different resolution spaces. Also changeable by the custom variables thing, but it has a lot of influence in your project. So
So
I
what
would
do you
advise.
generally do? Because in some of my projects, I have like a basic data grid that only has 2 columns. And in my opinion, it is too little information to use up the entire width of the page. And then that's the moment I set the width to fixed.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that how
that's a
you
cool
would use
moment.
it as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
A lot of web pages you are viewing, just normal web pages, they are all fixed width, just big white bars or background color bars on the sides, and your content is quite small. If you
Mm-hmm.
make your screen full screen resolution, that's fixed width.
Yeah.
And it's probably the same width as Mendix has, because it's a kind of general resolution and width somewhere defined. And if someone needs to make it, he's going to look up what's the resolution of desktops, what's the best resolution to read the content, and it will always be the same things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right.
it works. So we put this box also on fixed width, so it should align with the content box. I call box, but it's layout grid, of course.
We get what you mean.
But this is not so very nice.
No, I agree.
So if you want to keep that light blue background for the sake of learning, we will. Then a better way to fix this is make this full width again,
Mm-hmm.
and then make only the text be a fixed width container. You can also kind of bake it with adding a column to the left,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of search how much it is, and it kind of works.
That was something I would do.
There's a better way.
Nice.
I'll show you. But we don't need this one then. This
No.
column can go. This column is here because some other pages uses a button here or a profile info or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a
You
new
don't have
button was.
to remove. Add another layout grid, the full extent. Put that one a fixed width, and put the text in there.
That's
This
pretty
makes
easy.
it that the blue background thing is still full width, but the content will be fixed.
It's actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
But there you have the alignment issue again. And that kind of sucks. Let me see where this comes from. Because that's most of the work.
You mean the fact
Seeing
that
where
you want the restaurant image to line up with the restaurant, or the other way around?
exactly. Now I want the restaurants to be the same as the list view.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Okay.
line of image should be the same with restaurant.
Yeah. Just before we saw that there was some margin around it, right? Or is this something else?
Well, it has something to do with margin and paddings. That's true. This fixed width layout grid is within another layout grid, and the one where the list view is in is not.
Mm-hmm.
So we are missing an extra pair of paddings that layout grid has, and the paddings are the yellow greenish border around the, how you say it, around the box.
Yeah.
You
Around
have
the box,
the
yeah.
McDonald's,
This
the
few
golden
item.
arch logo, and that's the blue thing. That's the part where you can put content in. Then you have the yellow greenish border, and that's padding. That's from the max width or height of a box inward to create space. And you have the orange one, and the orange one is outside the box. So if this box would have a different color than the white background, you would see it better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the explanation of what margin and padding is. Margin is outside the box, padding is within the box.
Makes sense.
And layout grids have a padding, this one here. And then there's the margin within it. And this one does not have the first padding of the first layout grid.
Mm-hmm. So how do you solve this then? Is it just simple put another layout grid on the page and put the list view inside of that?
Well, that's gives me a little bit more room to see what's happening. Yeah, you can remove paddings from a layout grid like this one, because it, as you can see, it starts the greenish, the padding point starts at the same point as where restaurant starts.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
So or we can remove the padding from this one, so it will be nice and flat with restaurants, or we will increase the padding of restaurants. And
Yeah.
I will vote for the last part.
Yeah, because then everything is nice and centered.
Yeah, then you don't have to worry for a different element on this page, but maybe then also has a padding, but we removed it from this one, and so we also have to remove it from this one. And if
Yeah.
you add another one, you have to remove for this one. So you keep on going.
Yep.
Spacing left. Let's start with a medium. See where we're going. If it's enough. Well, there's the problem with this. The spacing selector, as you can see with the resulting class, is spacing outer left medium. And that's
Yeah.
marked.
Yeah.
And with a container of a layout grid that is fixed width, the margins are automatically determined by the browser. It just says this is so many pixels wide, and the rest will be filled in automatically with margins. If I put a spacing outer left medium on it, this has a real value, like 10, 20, 15, 30, I don't know. So the real value will now override the auto alignment of the browser. And we do not want to fix the margins of this container. We want to fix the padding of the container, so it will be better. But that's not an option in the default Mendix design properties. So I would suggest fix that first thing.
Agree.
Yes.
Let's do it. You can fix it in the settings.json JSON. And that file is within the theme folder in your project folder. So your project folder looks like this. There's a theme folder in it, and then there's the settings folder, settings.json. Open it here. And this is an XML kind of file, JSON file. You should know it. And here you can see the design properties.
Widgets.
A widget is like almost everything. Almost everything within Mendix is a widget. So all these classes are applicable to almost all elements because almost all elements are widgets.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and there is a specific one, div container, that's only div containers. And you see that this name left align as row, class row left. If I'm looking it up, well, while I'm selecting a layout grid, I do not see it.
Yeah.
If I select a list view, I also do not see it. If I select a div container, here's the align content. So the JSON file has some structure to it in what components can get what options. So keep that in mind if you want to change your text or your buttons or your div containers or whatever. In this case, paddings can be on all widgets.
Yep.
So we're going to do that.
But this can end up being a pretty large JSON file, right?
It already is.
Yeah. And it can be even larger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
the one I
then
made
again,
for the time series template is way bigger. Yeah.
yeah. But then again, this is a one-time investment, and then it's good to go, so to say.
Yeah. The thing you want to add has to have a name, and that
Mhm.
name is the first first column in design properties. It was spacing top for the one I copied because I do not want to type it all again, so I just copied one that is okay.
Mhm.
Change it to padding top. Let's make it padding left, for example, because we want to add a padding left. The type is a dropdown. You can search in this JSON what kind of types there are. There are only two
Toggle.
dropdowns, toggles.
Yeah.
Toggle is the yes no.
Okay.
Ah, okay.
It's also a dropdown,
Yeah.
but it's a toggle. So in this case, there are more than one choices for a padding left. So we need the dropdown type.
Yep.
Then you can add a description, and that's when you're hovering over it or when it's selected. Then sometimes underneath here, under this properties window, there's a small explanation box.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe if you hover long enough, you can also see it. I don't know exactly. But that's the part where the description pops up. I don't see it right now, but sometimes there's some explanation box.
Yeah, I think maybe it got lost when we moved the properties window.
Isn't it also
Right.
when you double click the container and then you should see the design properties in the pop-up? Or no?
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the
Cool.
the text underneath it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Nice find.
good. I'll make inner spacing of the box. Left inner spacing of the box. Then we also need classes, of course. The names in the options list is the one that you will see, the one that you will select.
Yep.
And the class is the class that it will be adding onto that element. We will keep the non, small, medium, large. And I know that there's an inner within index
Innerig.
instead of outer.
Yeah. And
Now I save it.
top should be left.
Yeah, top should be left.
Top should be left, yes. Also work left.
Oh, magic.
Yeah. So now I've saved this file. Sadly, we do not see it.
Okay. Then I
Linux need
guess
to be rebooted.
Ah,
seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
wow.
Isn't it just easy doable when you sync with project directory?
Maybe I don't use Visual Studio tool.
No, but I mean within Mendix.
Yeah.
Oh, the Linux.
I don't know. I can imagine it not working.
I never tested it.
Okay. You can
Uh,
try pressing F4 next time.
Okay. Will
Bart,
do. Will do.
Bart asked, will the settings be JSON? Will it be overwritten when you upgrade your Mendix project, for example, to a new version?
Um,
I hope not.
No, because your team folder is not overridden.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's in your team folder, so it has all the properties that all the files in your team folder have. So if you upgrade Atlas or you change out UI resources module, then yes, because then your whole team folder is replaced. But your team folder that you had before the replacement of Atlas or UI resources module is in the folder team.old.
Yep.
So you can copy it back from the team.old folder to your newly upgraded team folder.
Sounds as if this has been thought about before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart.
Well, now we should have a padding left. Yes.
Yes.
Woohoo.
Whoa.
And you see that it will add spacing in a left large. Select the medium, run it. And now you can add a lot of design properties. The trick
Basically,
is
go
if you do it,
nuts.
yeah, you can really go nuts. The trick is that if you are adding a lot of them, especially in data grids or list views, or that you can combine them. So if you're not educating your developers, I'm talking from a styling front-end kind of guy now. If I'm adding a lot of design properties here and I'm not educating the developers how to use them, they can just select them all if they want and still screw up the styling, because then all those classes will be applied. So it's good that you can go nuts with all those design properties, but you have to really think and test them out. If you combine them in different ways, that you're not fucking something up.
Yep.
Yep.
You can go nuts, yeah. And this is really cool, because now you don't have to tell them that there's a spacing inner left large something, because now you can just select the padding that they want.
And
I think it's not enough.
almost enough.
Which one is it? This one is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not enough. I don't know if the big one is enough, but it's
Probably too much.
yeah, probably.
You need a medium large.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Ah, yeah,
Wow.
nice. Okay, that was this one, and now we need some spacing between the
Image and the
this
yeah.
thing. Also, in the columns there is no margin. That kind of sucks. Also, make a design property for the columns. There's no
Hint.
yeah, there's no a pre-named area for the columns, because you see that it does not have a header design properties,
No.
so you will not find it in this list. But you can kind of guess it if you're in the stuff enough. You know, a button is a button, a div container is a div.
Could it be a column?
List view, data grid, there's a layout column thing. You can also look it up. I think there is a naming for all those components somewhere. I don't really remember.
Docs, you mean?
I think it's just layout grid column, all in one word. So with a camel case.
Yeah, that kind of makes
Layout
sense.
grid column. I thought out of front of my head, but whatever. For now, we're going to add spacing on the text.
Also works.
Yeah, so you don't have to do everything. You can also just work around it. There are a lot of options, especially when you also have the paddings here.
I'll post the documentation page in chat, because there's bound to be some information on this somewhere in here.
Nice.
Okay. Now I want the background to be a different color, so the other elements stand out more. And that's where we go back to the custom variables. Because I know there is a class for it, background color and background color secondary. And I think it is this one. I think it is not this one. Or I don't see it because of
Is Calypso still running because we rebooted the Studio Pro?
yeah, no, Calypso is still running. Should be.
Ah, yeah,
There it is. I changed the opacity, I think, in the first time.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
This is not so really nice. this is not the color I meant to change. So I need to search for the different one. And I think then it should be this one.
Always has to be, right?
It always has to be. Let's make it a nice purple tint. I'm in a purple mood now. Come on. So. Why is the other one purple? Because it's
That's the background color, right? The BG
Ah.
color.
I changed them both. That was not what I meant to do. This color picker of Visual Studio is not my friend, but doesn't matter.
Wow, that's true.
And because we have selected the list view with no styling, then the list view has no styling, so no background color. I don't know if that's pretty cool. Kind of looks weird in the page now. So let's add a container around it or something. A card maybe. And this is where I also made a change. I added the design property. Let's do it right now because it's a really, really handy one to have. In the div container, Control F, div container, I make a toggle. Let me copy a toggle from somewhere.
There's one a bit below. You already passed it. There. Hide on phone, hide on tablet.
Crazy that alignment is not. Oh, that's the old name function. Yeah, we don't need old name function for this one because it's a new one. I'm gonna remove it. Don't forget.
Comma.
Yeah.
Old name can be gone because we don't have an old name for this one. Name it. Make card toggle. Make this card. And put on the class card. Save. Now let's check if we can sync.
Yeah, synchronize project directory. Yeah.
I fear not.
I fear not.
No.
No.
Oh. Luckily, this is a small project and we can.
Luckily,
quite
everyone from Mendix is watching, and they added this just to their backlog.
Yeah. As
That
well
would be
as
cool.
searching the classes
Yeah.
and putting the design properties on the columns.
Exactly.
That would be nice. So now our container has a card option.
Yay.
It's cool.
And it's easy to type in card, way easier than what I just did. But if you have to do this 400 times within your project, then this is easier.
Yeah.
And now this you need to rerun.
Yep.
Ooh, these are nice colors.
It's amazing.
Look at that.
And we
Boom.
have a card.
I have a card.
It does stand out way more.
Yeah.
And if you have more restaurants, they will be just standing right within that card, of course. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So let's go to this page. First things first, let's remove that ugly border. I say ugly, but that's.
I didn't even notice. But that then again, you're the styling expert, and we are not.
It's just not so modern. The card, because this is a card element, what has this that has this border.
Mm-hmm.
I just show it to you. It's in here, the class name. I'm pointing at the screen, but that's
Yeah.
stupid. Um, but my mouse is also on the word card. I don't know if there's anything of the streaming in front of it. I hope
No.
not. You can see that class card, and within the style inspector of the browser, you can see that border one big solid and a D7 color.
Mm-hmm.
If you check it off, you see there's no border anymore. That's what we're going to fix. You can also see that what kind of file, this is quite cool, that you can see the SASS source files. Well, actually they are one .css file, but you can still inspect all the way to the SASS file. So now you can also see in what folder that this SASS file is. And that's also the reason why I want the folders in the custom folder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to
And
scroll the whole list of all these strange SASS files. And this one is in the UI resource building blocks. Oh, there it is. What I do for this one is just call it UI building blocks. UI building blocks. Okay, now building blocks. Cool. And within the building blocks, create a file called cart. .css. That's the extension for SAS files.
Yep.
SCS. Why it's not SAS, I don't know.
We had a question in our pub quiz a few weeks ago, and they asked us what SOS, what the abbreviation stands for.
Yeah.
You obviously know, right?
I did.
Oof.
Awesome something. Awesome
Something
style sheet. Something.
something awesome something.
Yeah. Uh,
Syntactically.
Syntactically awesome style sheet.
Yeah.
Syntactically. Syntactically.
Something to break your tongue over.
Yeah. But why the extension of the files itself is not SAS?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask before, but I thought let's not ask difficult questions, and I'm glad I didn't.
I just say, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I'm gonna turn on some lights.
Yes. Why does my arrow down not work? God. SCSS. No, I need it. Do need this one.
That should work.
Go.
Border 0, save, and our border is gone. And now you see also in the style inspector that there's another card.scss, and that's the one that I included just now in the app folder building blocks.
Nice.
Very nice.
What I also did in the time series styling is add some design properties for shadows, 3 or 4 levels of shadows. So you can just select a shadow depth and then none, low, medium, high, and it will add a depth of shadow.
Cool.
Would you say that has replaced the borders, the shadow depth?
I think for some elements where you need them, yeah, it's especially for the material design kind of look and feel, because that's of course everything has a height, as they call it, with shadows and all kind of stuff. So people are kind of getting used to seeing those shadows to differentiate meaning and urgent in and focus in the cards.
Oh.
where they need to be and need to work.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's always changing. For now, it's shadows and maybe in a half year, we don't want shadows anymore and we want to go back to borders. Or always changing. But there you have visual designers for.
That is true.
They will tell you what's hot and what's not.
And they will come up with
I
impossible
apply
things
a lot of
first.
styling, so I kind of grow with the hot or not vibe.
Hmm I remember there was a time when we would have those visual designers come up with impossible looking apps. Well, it looked beautiful, and then the client will go on like, yes, this is what I want, and then it will go over the fence, and then we would have to try and recreate it in Mendix, which was never possible in my opinion,
Yeah,
or with my
yeah.
experience. But
That is a definitely a big part of your work if you are going to do some front-end thing for Mendix, knowing what can and what can't, and knowing what you can do with how much effort. Because there are a lot of things you can do, but with a lot of effort. And if you tone it down just a bit, it can be quite easily built in. And that's always something that you have to communicate and talk about. Okay, this is cool, but can we do it like this because Mendix, blah blah blah. And it's not you can do quite a lot, but you have to have a lot of experience with it, and so it's just doing it a lot and asking other people who are front ending for Mendix if they know a solution for the design that you got,
mm-hmm.
because you have to learn somehow what is possible and what isn't, especially when you're starting with front ending for Mendix, because it's just a bit different than front ending for a general web page, because you can build actually anything. That's what people always say. You know, if you are developing, everything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe in Mendix that's also true, but there's a lot of work for some things that you want compared to some other things that are also good, but it's just can be just should be used.
Yeah. So we
That
are.
makes
That's because of the platform. Mendix has all these things in place to, well, give us freedom, but also to keep it fairly simple for us. So we have a lot of freedom, but maybe not as much as someone who would customly build their entire website from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you stay kind of close to those elements you are given, you are way faster, of course.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you can also just choose to add some components that do take a lot of time, but are adding a lot of value for your customer,
Yeah,
and tone down on all the other stuff. Um, then you will still be faster, and you still have some very cool elements without having to build everything. So
mm-hmm.
it's kind of a shift and mix with what's possible and what's not.
yeah.
That's
As with
true.
everything, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
The same goes for building logic.
Yeah,
How fancy do you want it to be?
yeah. I think it's exactly the same as with logic, and you see that it's going better and more advanced as Mendix is progressing. All the things that you wouldn't do, couldn't do, or took a lot of effort in microflows are now somewhere solved in between the last years, and some things are even new in nanoflows, for example. The things that you just couldn't do before, and you had to say no to
yeah,
a product owner or a design team or whatever. And now it's possible. So with the design and how fast it is growing now with even with just one version below 8, even within 8, the first 8 and 8.10 where we're working now, there's differences.
Yeah.
Oh, so many.
And that's it goes so fast. I cannot say what we can and cannot do with Mendix within a year.
That's part of
You
the
can
fun,
conquer the
right?
world.
Yeah, it is. And it goes the correct direction, so I'm really happy.
Nice.
So you're really pro Manix Studio Pro 8, which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it adds a lot of new cool design features, and the design properties really makes it super fancy for developers, and not to use building blocks where they are not meant for, and not have to remember all the styling of all the class possibilities, or add a page in a styling app, for example, where you list all the classes that you have made or that are existing, so that they can just look up, I need to do something, and scroll down the list. Can I do this? Or go to a Bootstrap site to look up some classes there, because that's strange.
Uh-huh.
And these design properties, and if you set them up once, it really helps.
Yeah, it makes sense that you're so happy about this.
Yeah. And another cool feature is the layout grid and how it's built right now, because it will auto fit content.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this as well.
Before you have to manual set all those columns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every time you put in a layout grid, you have to put in what number it is. It's always started with 12, so I've changed all that to 4. It's so easy that it will automatically detect that it should be 4 or auto fit content when you have 3
Especially
columns.
that, right? Auto fit content is, I think, the best added option in this one.
Yeah. And another cool thing is, if you put in wrong numbers, you can see it does not fit. It will automatically shift this whole column under the first row and above the third of the first column. Actually, it was a column, of course, and now it's its own row, because I said that this column is 12, and 12 is the max within layout grids, so that's the max width a column can have. Well, now you can see it. This is a max width column.
Wow.
This is how it's going to look like, and this is a full width column. And
How
that's
cool is
that's a
that?
really cool feature, that you can already in Mendix see what the numbers are, the effect on
Yeah.
your layout grid.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even know this was
No.
in there.
No? That really is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of wanna ask, because seeing that we're nearing like 9:30, which is our usual cut-off point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was wondering if you have some some last tips, pointers, stuff that you suggest we really look into when progressing with the application that we're building right now, because yeah, I kind of want to see the styling part move on a little bit more in the, like, if it would be possible, maybe we could do it off stream before the next stream. What would you
Mhm.
suggest we do with this?
Like the whole app,
Yeah, or
or
the project itself, or maybe I don't know, create building blocks. I don't know.
yeah, you can most definitely build building blocks. I don't know if this review part is a default building block,
No.
but
No.
yeah, that could be a building block where you have a header with a number of how many stuffs is underneath it, and a link to add something, and with content underneath it. That could be a reusable building block within the application. I I don't know if have you touched building blocks last time that you used them, that you integrated them in the website?
Been a while for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Which page is the
Restaurant
details?
details, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So the entire
if
container.
you yeah, this one is it? Huh?
Yeah.
If you decide to reuse this for some other pages, maybe you have not only restaurants but also um, reviews of persons, that you can click on a person, you can see how good the person is reviewing. Um, then you will reuse this on a different page.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not exactly a snippet. Those are different elements in it. Then you
Yep.
can make it a building block. Um, there's a container around it, a card in this case. It's easy, it's fine, because otherwise I have to do it. But now it's already here. You see that this one has classes on in the line of the classes thing, while we
Yep.
just added the make class design property.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is a tool for it to make those classes appear in the design properties.
Really?
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Here.
What?
Convert class.
Whoa.
Holy shit.
Ah.
That's awesome.
And now you see
Oh
that this
wow.
make class, yes, and it's
That's
spacing out the bottom of the large. That's quite cool.
Mine is blown.
Yeah, cool, huh?
Yeah.
If you want to use this as a building block, you can just right-click an element and make a building block. Name it. Preview block. Okay. Cannot use spaces, so you have to underscore it. Or camel case. Now in the Project Explorer, there is now a new icon, and this is a building block. And it automatically opens this building block, so you can make some changes if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And what a building block does, it removes the database, because you can um, export and import it in all different projects and all different pages, so the database cannot be the same, so that you remove the database.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. But if you're on a page, now you can right click and add the building block, and you see that it's here.
Cool.
You can place this wherever you want in the project. This review block, building block within the Project Explorer, you can just move it to somewhere where you are saving your building blocks, and it will still be accessible in this list.
Yeah.
So, but
Uh,
now you changed a building block, but it isn't actually a
edit.
building block anymore, right? Because if you now would change your building block, then that change would not be on this page.
It's not a snippet.
Yeah,
It's
it's
exactly.
not a snippet. No,
Okay.
it's just a packed, a pre-filled element.
Yeah, and you can place
Exactly.
that and
Yeah,
go on with your day.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So
That
now
works
I
then.
placed it here, and now I can correct all the errors, and in one adding as in I add an element, I added multiple elements. So a page layout with 2 columns, the title, a link, the data view, or list view is this, I guess. Yeah,
Yep.
it's list view.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in just one click. And that's the cool part of building blocks.
Yeah.
And that's the real strength of building blocks.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Where
use
I
I use them too little,
use
I
it,
think.
We get the question why would we need the building blocks? You could copy the stuff. Well, yeah,
so
you could, but then I think this is also very powerful because you can enter you can how would you say that? Swap them between projects. Like exchange the
yeah,
building blocks between projects.
in your project module, I guess that these things are called.
Mm-hmm.
There is an App Store module, and within that one, there's Atlas UI resource. I spoke a bit earlier tonight about UI resources or Atlas. That's this thing. And here is a big list of all building blocks. It's all default by Mendix. They just pre-made some combinations of stuff that you can have in your project. List one is a combination of things. Where is the wizard, for example, is a nice progress wizard. There's a lot of stuff in here, and there's a lot of styling on those things.
No.
Don't see it.
But I agree with Janneke. You don't always need the building blocks, obviously. Only when you see some
No.
heavy reusability for the bit of things that you built.
Yeah, and what you can do here is make your own list with your own building blocks.
Yeah.
And then export them and import them in a different project. And you cannot, well, maybe they fixed it. I heard something that you can copy paste between projects.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, and with building blocks you can.
Yeah. So it's especially powerful if you have like multiple apps at the same client, or you want to build like a starter application template like you did for TimeSeries.
Yep.
So that every app we build using that template has all these building blocks ready for you to use.
Yeah, and if your client, for example, decides that list views should have a paging numbering instead of load more button, you can make a building block with the pagination on top of it and the list view, compact it in a container, make that a building block, and tell everybody that's developing for the client, use the building block for list views instead of the normal list views because we need the pagination with it.
Cool.
And it's just the same one click as you would use a normal list view, but then you have pagination within it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Cool.
very helpful.
But we can most definitely do another cool, more styling, more detailed styling, and just go style and talk less. Differentiation sometimes,
No, but
or
I
we
think
do
that
offline.
that's exactly what this was for. Our first stream went exactly the same, where we talked about all the basic concepts that come into play when you build your first application, and doing styling on an application with all different tools, etc. I only agree that this requires some explanation as well, the same way that we did. So I'm all for doing something like this this again in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And then really get to styling.
Yeah. make ourselves a beautiful application.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's most definitely good to know the basics before you just jump in. So yeah.
Yeah. And I really I'm thankful and grateful for the help that you did, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I think the application looks better than it did before.
Not sure if we're keeping the purple.
No.
No, no, I get that.
But yeah,
No,
I do want to thank you very much for your time and your willingness to be here on your spare evening.
no
And
problem.
I at least learned a ton. I hope our viewers learned as well.
I hope so as well.
And yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully see you next time.
Yes. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye bye.
There goes your camera.
Well, he actually left the chat.
Yeah. That's okay.
That is okay.
So I think we are done as well, right? So I'm not gonna fix your camera right now because that's too much of an effort.
I agree.
They can still see the most important part of you. And there he goes.
Yeah.
So
No, but all kidding aside.
yeah, like I said, I hope you uh, learned something about how to style your application, or at least start with styling your application. I did, and yeah, I'm very psyched to continue this styling journey and actually make something really cool of it. I
Absolutely.
I have seen what is possible, so I'm just not able to do it. So I'm very curious to see where we can end up.
No, hey, Ronnie did give us some great input, and I
Yeah,
think I'm pretty
back,
there he is again. He's back.
but now in the wrong order. So my Discord
Oh,
screen capture is all messed up.
oh yeah, because the webcam feed is off. But
Not sure if I can drag and drop them. Nope, player popped out.
that's okay. But no, I think what I wanted to say is that we can do some stuff off stream.
Yeah,
Oh boy, something went wrong.
Yep, but you're back.
Sorry.
That's okay.
no worries. We were closing down anyway. So yeah, thank you guys. If you have any other requests, what we should look at uh, in the future, please let us know. And
Yeah,
I
ideas
hope
for the
you
next.
guys learned something today.
Yes, and if you like, please don't forget to follow, so you will get a nice notification,
Very
or
true.
keep looking at the community, the managed community Slack.
Yeah, and hope to see you next time.
Yes.
And enjoy the rest of your evening, I'd say. Okay, thanks for hanging
All
out,
right.
guys. See ya.
You. Bye bye
Bye.
again.